In this lecture, we are going to graph quadratics. We have the equation y equals x squared plus 2x minus 3. The first thing I need to do is I need to find the x-intercepts. You can find the x-intercepts one of two ways. You could use a quadratic formula, or in this lecture, we are going to use factoring in ZPP. So this is a trinomial, so I'm going to use grouping as a way to factor. So I'm going to take my a times my c, so my a is 1 and my c is 3, and I get 3. 1 times 3 is 3, and there's no other factors. So then I see that 3 and 1 make 2. So I'm going to put 3 here and 1 here, and I notice that a positive 3 minus 1 is 2. Bring down the x's, and then I'm going to bring down everything else. So now I'm going to group these together, the first two terms and the second two terms. From the first binomial, I can pull out an x, so I get x times x plus 3. Now for this to work, I know my second binomial also has to be x plus 3. So what number would I have to pull out to get negative 1x? That's going to be negative 1. So now I test it. If I take negative 1 times x, I get negative 1x. And if I take negative 1 times 3, I get negative 3. So now, these are the same, so I pull those out, I get x plus 3, and what's left over is x minus 1. Now, to figure out what my x-intercepts are, I'm going to do ZPP. So x plus 3 equals 0, and x minus 1 equals 0. So when I solve them, I get that x equals negative 3, and x equals positive 1. So now I go to my graph, and I'm going to graph my x-intercepts. I have x is negative 3, and x is 1. The next thing that you need to do is find your line of symmetry. And you're going to do that with the equation x equals negative b over 2a. For this example, my b is going to be 2, and my a is going to be 1. So when I plug that in, I get negative 2 over 2 times 1, so that's negative 2 over 2, and that's negative 1. So my line of symmetry is at x equals negative 1. And I can show that on my graph. I'm going to go ahead and show that just with a dotted line. That way I know where my line of symmetry is. The last thing you need to do is find your vertex. To find your vertex, you're going to take your line of symmetry and plug it back into the equation. Notice my line of symmetry says x equals. So I'm going to plug that in into all my x's. So I get y equals negative 1 squared plus 2 times negative 1 minus 3. When I simplify this, I get 1, and then minus 2 minus 3. When I simplify that, I get negative 4. So my vertex is going to be at negative 1, comma, negative 4. So going to the graph, I go to negative 1, and then negative 4. Notice that when you draw the vertex, it's always going to be on the line of symmetry. And that's why we found the line of symmetry first. The last thing you need to do is actually go ahead and draw your graph. And that red line is the graph of y equals x squared plus 2x minus 3.